Hi, Tian. So we finished this book yesterday, and we learned about the Vikings. And I have here, this is a picture of a Viking ship. And there were two types of Viking ships. One was a war ship, and the other one was for trading goods and things. I think I have, yeah, there's one as well. And you see they have a figurehead there. This is one in a museum. I don't know, can you see that? But look at that. It's quite spectacular, isn't it? Yeah, would have been pretty cold there, I would think. So that's a Viking ship. And the other thing we learned at the end of the book, we're talking about the rune alphabet. So instead of A, B, C, D, it's a particular one. And remember, we saw Matt's name, and that's how you do it in runes. And this is what Emily looks like. And that's what a fish would look like. So what I did was I found this is a rune alphabet. And so up here, that's an A, B, and you know what? When you go through it, you realize there's no C, there's no Q, and there's no X in this one. Well, in any of the rune alphabets. So I think that C is like a K sound. So I think that instead of a C, they would use what's used for K, and that's that one right there. So that's the rune alphabet. Now, so what I did was, I wonder what Tian's name looks like, and there's Tian, T-I-A-N, and this is your name using the rune alphabet. And this is your dad's name, Kylie, and this is Kylie in the rune alphabet. And your mom, Toot, this is hers. And here, that would be the C. And remember I said there's no C, so you would use the K up here. Yeah, so that's, and I guess when you have these two letters together, that's the symbol that you would use. So pretty interesting. You could send some secret messages to people if you knew how to use this, and it would be pretty easy to use. So now the book we're going to start is this one, and it's SOS Titanic. And the Titanic was a huge ship that was sailing across from England to the United States. So there's going to be some interesting things in here that we'll be able to show you pictures of. And you see how this is? This is Titanic, and they're using times. And I think these are the times, and this is when the Titanic would have hit the iceberg. So there's Emily and Matt again, and there's the sled over here, how it all began. So this is, in one of the other books that we were reading at the beginning, there was always a prologue, and that tells you how the stories began. Each adventure would be different, but how they all started. Emily and Matt couldn't believe their luck. They discovered an old dresser full of strange objects in the tower of Emily's house. They also found a note from Emily's great-aunt Miranda. The sled is yours. Fly it to wonderful adventures. They found a sled right behind the dresser. When they sat on it, shimmering gold words appeared. Rub the leaf 3 times fast, and there's the leaf right here on the front. Soon you'll fly to the past. The sled rose over Emily's house. It flew over their town of Glenwood. It sailed out of a cloud and into the past. Their adventures on the flying sled had begun. Where will the sled take them next? Turn the page to find out. And there's a picture of the Titanic. Or not, yes, there's the Titanic. It's a model. Chapter 1, Titanic Crazy. The phone rang. Emily raced to answer it. Hi, Em. It was her best friend, Matt. I finally finished. Come and see it. Come and see what? You'll see. It's awesome. Awesome? I'll be right over. Emily ran to Matt's house. He was waiting at the front door. This way, he said. Emily followed Matt to his room. A large cardboard box was sitting on his desk. He lifted the box. What do you think? Wow, exclaimed Emily. That's a big ship. It's not just any big ship. Don't you recognize it? No. Come on, Em. It was the most awesome ship ever built. Well, that is till it sank. Emily's eyes widened. Is that a model of the Titanic? Oh, that's what it is. It's the Titanic model. You bet. Check out the name on the side. Emily looked at the side of the ship. There it was in gold letters. Well, it's not on this side, so it must be on the other side. Titanic. It was the jewel of the White Star Line, said Matt. It was built in Belfast, Ireland, and finished in 1912. It sailed from England on April 10th and left Ireland on April 11th for New York. You want to know more? Sure, Emily grinned. You sound like you know everything about the Titanic. But tell me some more. Not everything. I don't know everything. All I know is that I love the Titanic. I'm Titanic crazy, said Emily, laughing. Yeah. I read a book about the Titanic. I knew the ship was going to sink, but I still bit my nails for the last 3 chapters, said Emily. Wouldn't it be amazing to fly to the Titanic, said Matt. Maybe we could stop the ship from sinking. Yeah, right. We can't change history. No one can. We don't know that for sure. What if we tell the captain that he has to watch out for icebergs? We tell him that if he doesn't, his ship is doomed. We can even tell him the exact time the Titanic will hit the iceberg off the coast of Newfoundland and lots of other facts. Now, Newfoundland, remember in the last book we read about the Vikings, they found a land that's called, and they called it Vinland, but today we call it Newfoundland. But what if he doesn't believe us? I don't want to see all those poor people go down with the ship. That would be awful. Matt looked at his model. He rubbed his hand across the word Titanic. If we can find something about the Titanic in your great Aunt Miranda's dresser, then the sled will take us there. Even if we can't stop the ship from sinking, we might save someone. It's worth a try. And I thought I saw something Titanic in the 3rd drawer. Come on, Anne. It would be fantastic to be on the Titanic, even for a little while. I don't remember seeing anything in the dresser from the ship, but you're right. Walking around the Titanic would be amazing. Maybe we could even go swimming, said Matt. Emily shivered. Are you kidding? The Atlantic Ocean is freezing in April. There were icebergs everywhere. We wouldn't swim in the Atlantic. There was a pool on the Titanic. If you were in first class, you could go swimming for 25 cents. That would be fun. But what I really like is to walk down the grand staircase. Emily stood up. She lifted an imaginary long skirt and walked across the room as if she were an actress on the red carpet. I'll draw a picture in my sketchbook of me walking like this and waving to my fans. Matt laughed, and I'll record everything on my recorder. Even the sound of the Titanic hitting the iceberg. If we can't stop it, I'd at least be recording history. Chapter 2. What I'll do for tomorrow, Tian, is I'll find an actual picture of the Titanic, but I'll also find a picture of an iceberg and we can see how it is that it would have destroyed the ship. April 14th, 1912. Emily and Matt dashed up the rickety stairs to the tower room. Emily ran over to the mahogany dresser. She opened the third drawer and peered in. Nothing Titanic here. Try another drawer, said Matt. Emily opened the second drawer. Nope, not here either. Try the first drawer. Okay, wow, look at this. Emily pulled out a thick piece of paper and showed Matt. It's a first-class menu from the Titanic. Look, you could eat 10 courses for dinner. Maybe the Titanic sank because people ate too much. Matt laughed. Yeah, right. They didn't have to eat everything on the menu, but in the early 1900s, rich people loved gigantic meals. Well, this is a gigantic meal. Matt examined the menu. They had 3 courses of meat in first class. 1 piece of roast chicken is all I can eat for supper. I bet by the 5th course you're so stuffed you have to run 3 times around the ship for exercise. Then you can come back and eat more. After all, you can't miss the 10th course, dessert. Emily closed her eyes. I want one of those chocolate painted eclairs right now. So what are we waiting for? Let's fly, said Matt. But remember, we can't eat too much or the sled might not be able to lift us up and fly us back home, said Emily, laughing. Don't worry, I could never eat that much. Matt pulled the sled out from behind the dresser. The friends hopped on and Emily rubbed the maple leaf in front of the sled. Soon the magic words appeared. Rub the leaf 3 times fast, soon you'll fly to the past. As soon as they did, the sled was engulfed in fog. When it lifted, they flew over Emily's house, over Glenwood, and toward a fluffy white cloud. Every time we fly, said Matt, my heart pounds like crazy. My heart pounds too, said Emily. We're so high up, and we never know what will happen. Sometimes when I look down, my stomach feels like it will flip out of my body. Hold on to your stomach, Matt. Here comes the cloud. The sled flew into the fluffy white cloud. And that tends to be something that happens with their adventures, is that the sled flies into a cloud. And then when they get to the other side of the cloud, that's where they are in that time in history. When it burst out, it was late afternoon and they were flying over the Atlantic. Below them sailed the Titanic. Wow, it's even more beautiful in real life than in the movie, said Emily. Matt sighed. Poor Titanic. Maybe not, said Emily. Emily and Matt to the rescue. And there they are on their sleigh. 3 p.m. Chapter 3. The sled landed beside the rail on a lower deck of the ship. Hey, this isn't first class, said Emily, looking around. I bet it's third class, said Matt. You can get to second and first class from the bridge deck, which is above us. Let's go up. Why don't we check out the third class first? Then we can see more of the ship. We'd better keep track of the time and keep the sled with us, said Emily. We need it safe and handy in case. I know, said Matt, peering over the railing. It's freezing in the Atlantic. No one would last long down there, even an Olympic swimmer. Emily shivered. I don't even want to think about that. Come on, let's look around. As the friends turned away from the railing, a boy of about 8, wearing a short gray jacket, long pants, and a cap, rushed past them. He crouched behind a wooden bench. Shh, he whispered. Don't tell. Don't tell what? Emily whispered back. That I'm here. We're playing hide and seek. I don't want to get caught and be it. Ready or not, "Here I come," a girl called out, and then she said, "Got you. You're it." Have you ever played hide and seek? "Phew, she caught someone else," said the boy under the bench. He popped up. "Are you lost? You don't look like you belong in third class in those fancy clothes." Emily and Matt glanced down. Emily wore a long purple dress with a round collar, high button shoes, and a purple ribbon around her ponytail. Matt wore a blue suit, white shirt, pants that ended below his knees, and button-up shoes. So that's Emily and Matt there. And that's the little boy, other little boy. "Yes, we're from up there," said Matt. "We just wanted to see every part of the Titanic." "Isn't it a wonderful ship?" said the boy. "My mom and dad saved for 2 years so we could sail on it. We're going to live in America. We'll help my uncle on his farm in Pennsylvania. My name's Lou." "I'm Emily." "I'm Matt." "Glad to meet you. Do you want to play?" asked Lou. "That would be great, except..." "What time is it?" asked Emily. Lou shook his head. "I don't know." "We'd better go," said Matt. "Come back down and we'll play some other time," said Lou. "That would be fun," said Matt, "except that..." Lou frowned. "Your parents don't want you to play with the third-class kids, right?" "No, we can play with anyone we want. It's just that..." said Matt. "What?" asked Lou. Emily took a deep breath. "If something happens to the Titanic, if it hits an iceberg, promise you'll run to a lifeboat. Don't wait for anything, okay?" Lou slapped his thigh and howled with laughter. "Nothing is going to happen to the Titanic. It's unsinkable." "Promise us anyway," said Matt. Lou rolled his eyes. "You two are strange." Emily smiled. "Maybe we are, but please remember what we said." "I'll remember because it's the silliest thing I've ever heard." Maybe we'll just read another chapter. 4 p.m. Matt picked up the sled to carry it. There was a gate in front of the stairs. It looked like it was there to stop third-class passengers from going up to the second-class and first-class promenade deck, but someone had left it open. Matt and Emily waved to Lou and scurried up the stairs. When they reached the second-class promenade deck, Matt bent over to put the sled down and collided with a woman. "Oh dear, I'm so sorry," she said. "Are you okay?" "I think so," said Matt, rubbing his head, "but my head's a little sore." "My head is sore too," said the woman. She was in her mid-20s and wore a long blue dress with a blue shawl. "I've been frantic looking for my scarf and I didn't see you. My fiance gave it to me. It's silver and blue silk. Have you seen it?" "Is this it?" asked Emily. She leaned under a deck chair and pulled out a scarf tangled in the chair's legs. "Oh, yes, yes." The woman's eyes sparkled. "Thank you. Now I can face my Harry again. We are to be married in Canada soon. I even have my wedding dress with me on the ship." "Wow, we're from Canada too," said Emily. "I was born in Nova Scotia, but Harry lives in British Columbia." "We'll be married there. My name is Hilda Slater." "I'm Emily, and this is Matt. What does your dress look like?" Hilda's eyes twinkled. "Would you like to see it?" she asked. "Yes," said Emily. "I assume you're not as interested in wedding dresses as Emily," said Hilda, smiling at Matt. "I don't mind seeing it, and Emily and I always stick together." The two friends followed Hilda to her room on the salon deck. "I'm sharing these quarters with my friend Florence," she explained as she opened her stateroom door. The room had 2 beds. Each bed had a carved wooden headboard. In between the 2 beds stood a dresser with a large carved oval mirror. There was also a small couch in the room. Emily and Matt sat on the couch while Hilda yanked a large trunk out from under her bed. She opened the trunk. She lifted up layers of tissue paper and pulled out a long satin dress. Here it is here. laced with pearls. It's beautiful, said Emily. Hilda beamed. I plan to keep it forever and pass it on to my daughter. I hope she will pass it on to her daughter. That's a great idea, said Emily, but just in case something happens to the Titanic, don't go back and get your dress. Just run to a lifeboat, okay? Hilda's eyes widened. She stared at Emily. Why would you say such a strange thing? Nothing will happen to the Titanic, and if it did, I would take my dress with me to the lifeboat. I could never leave it behind. Hilda looked at her watch. Oh dear, it's almost 5. I really must go. I promised Florence I'd stroll with her on the deck before dinner. They hurried out of the stateroom. Hilda waved goodbye and walked off to join her friend. She thinks I'm nuts, said Emily. Maybe, said Matt, but maybe she'll remember what you said. I just wish we could make people believe us about the Titanic. I know what we can do, said Emily. Why don't you show your recorder to the next person we meet? That will prove we're from the future. A girl tapped Emily on the shoulder. Did you just say you're from the future? She asked. Emily and Matt turned. The girl was about 10. She had curly red hair and freckles. She wore a long navy blue dress with a white collar and a navy blue ribbon in her hair. She pointed at them and laughed. That's the funniest thing I've heard all day. I bet the next thing you'll say is that you can fly. Okay, so we'll leave it there, okay? So we're getting closer and closer. Chapter 5, because remember, if we go back here, chapter 5, and it's at 11:30 that they hit the iceberg. So this will be an interesting book for you, Tian, and this is a true story as well. So I hope you had a good day, and I hope you're going to enjoy this story. So lots of hugs and lots of kisses, and we'll see you tomorrow.